Welcome back to Political Science 4781, Techniques of Political Analysis. In this lecture, I want to talk about the scenario in which you've found the data that you're interested in finding, but they're not available in any of the standard formats. They're not available as CSV files or Stata files or tab-separated value files or anything else. They're on the internet. They're on a web page or a series of web pages, but they don't come neatly packaged as a file that you can just download. Well, there are a few possibilities when this is the case. Sometimes you'll be lucky and you'll find that the data already exist in something that resembles a rectangular table. A good example very often is tables in Wikipedia. If that's the case, you can highlight the data that you're interested in, copy and paste into Excel, and save as a comma-separated value file. More typically, though, what you find is either that the data are on a page in a way that doesn't really work when you try to copy and paste it, or that the data are spread across multiple web pages. And there your options are a little bit more complicated. And today I want to talk about one of those options in particular, a web scraper called Outwit Hub. Now, Outwit Hub it's a lot like a web browser. As a matter of fact, it started out as a plug-in for the Firefox web browser. It works like a web browser. You type in the URL at the top, it displays the web page, but it's got some handy options along the side. You can look at different elements in the web page, links, images, so on and so forth. You can try converting the different parts of the web page to data, and you can even do automated scans of one web page or multiple web pages for data that you might be interested in. And if you have any questions about how all of this works, or if you're trying to solve a particular problem with Outwit Hub, they have a fantastic set of tutorials that you can look at to see whether any of them cover the particular case that you have in mind. So now what I want to do is sort of walk through each of the scenarios that I've just described in real life applications and give you a sense of how each of the solutions that I've pointed out works in practice. Sometimes when you're looking for data, you'll find that it's readily available online, and then the problem becomes, how do you get it from the online source onto your computer? So let's take a look at the simplest case first. This is a case in which we've got a list of countries by GDP, and they're all set up in this nice handy table. And what we can do for a first cut to see if the simplest approach is going to work is just outline all of the observations in the table. Now, if you're careful and you don't catch the column next to it, it's not too difficult to copy. Just pull down the Edit menu and select Copy the data, and then switch over to a spreadsheet and hit Paste. Right, and there you go. You've got all of your countries and all of your GDP numbers right there ready to go. Now, there are other situations in which it's not so simple. Let's say you want information about Consumer Price Index. Right, so you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics site and you try the same trick. You outline the table, you go to the very end, you go up, you copy it, and you go back to your trusty Excel spreadsheet, you hit Paste, and what you get is guacamole. You really can't interpret the numbers very well at all. You've got a combination of titles and numbers in the first column, and it would be a nightmare to tease all of that out. So this is where something called a web scraper comes in really, really handy. And the one I want to talk about is called Outwit Hub. So what you do is you take this web page and you point Outwit Hub toward it. Outwit Hub has a built-in web browser. So it allows you to examine the web pages that have the data that you're looking for. More than that, though, it's got a series of views on the left-hand side that allow you to break down the page in a bunch of different ways. So in this case, what we're looking for is a table. So what we're going to do is tell OutWit Hub, you know, there are data on this page, and they take the form of a table, and I'd like you to do your best to figure out what that table looks like. And OutWit Hub says, well, my best guess is the first column is expenditure category, the second column is relative importance, the third column is unadjusted indexes, and so on and so forth, which is exactly right. Right? Now, what do we do with these data? Well, we hit catch, which puts all of the data down into this little basket down at the bottom, right, which we can look over, and then we export the catch to any of these formats. We're going to choose CSV because so many different programs understand it. So now, once we've saved the catch to the desktop, we can turn around and open it up in Excel and see that we have all the data that we're looking for. It includes a lot of information. It includes source URL and so on and so forth, and as well as the collection time. We don't really need all of that, so we're going to highlight these columns and delete, and then you've got the consumer price index exactly as it was from the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. Now, what about a third scenario? Okay. And that's one in which you're looking at some information, like let's say in this case census information, that's broken down by state, but each state has its own web page. So here we've got from InfoPlease, we have a variety of data points from the U.S. Census Bureau, but instead of having population by state, we've got an individual state page with all the information about each state. Okay, so let's say in this case we want to take a look at a percentage of white people, percentage of black people, the percentage of people reporting 2 or more races, and the percentage of Hispanic or Latino people. That is going to be a bit of a pain sort of to copy and paste into your spreadsheet, and there's a significant chance that you get something wrong. Now, this is where a program like OutWit Hub really makes a difference. First, we're going to empty the cache, just so that we don't have that old information cluttering up anything new that we put in there. And then we're going to go to the census page for Alabama. Okay. Now, what you have to ask yourself here is, if I had a reasonably intelligent robot that I could send out to get all of this information, what instructions would I give the robot? Well, the robot doesn't see this web page the way that you do, right? It sees it as source code. So let's take a look at the source code for the page. Now, as we scroll down, we see a few things. We can find the pieces of information that we're looking for right here. So we've got population 2005, we've got population percent change, population 2000, people under 5, so on and so forth. Here are the data that we want: white persons percent 2005, black persons percent 2005. So what we have to find out, if we're going to tell this intelligent robot how to go about finding these data, what we have to tell it is where the data are situated on the page. And the easiest way to do that is to tell it what comes before the data and what comes after the data. Well, a lot of what comes before these data points looks pretty similar, until you go back a little bit farther and you see that each piece of information has a unique header. RP8P1 is the one that we want here, right? RP9P1 is the one that we want down here. So, armed with that information, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the scraper window, and we're going to create a scraper. And what the scraper will do is exactly what the intelligent robot would do. You give it instructions, and it carries them out. So, the first thing we're going to do is tell it to look for the title of the page, which tells us exactly where the state name is. And then after the title, we look for the string less than / td greater than. Okay? The next thing we're going to tell it to look for is this string. And that is going to take us up to the beginning of the percentage of white people in 2005. Then we're going to tell it after that string to look for % less than SUP greater than. Okay? So what we do by giving it those two pieces of information is we say, I want you to grab anything in between. Okay? In this case, 71.4. Now the third thing we're going to tell it is to go down to census item 9, right, which is percentage of black people. And again, %SUP is going to be our closing string. Then we tell it we want it to go to item number 14, which is the percentage of Hispanic or Latino people. And finally, we tell it to go to item 13, immediately above it, which is the percentage of people reporting 2 or more races. Okay? Now that we have all of this, we want to make sure that it works in the case of Alabama, so we click Execute. And Execute comes back, right, it's got 71.4% white, 26.4% black, exactly the numbers that we were looking for. Great. So, now we have to go back to the original page that has the links to all 50 states. Right? So, we point Outwit Hub toward that page. Alright, here we go. And we tell it there are a lot of links on here that I'm interested in, so please give me a listing of all the different links. And it does, and it turns out that between the ads and all the other items on here, the other links to different parts of the website, there are actually a lot of links. So we scroll down a little bit farther and a little bit farther until we get to state names. So the first one is Alabama. We're going to highlight everything before then, shift-click, backspace, and delete it. And then we get down to the bottom, which is going to be Wyoming. And we highlight everything below that, shift-click, delete, and it's gone. And we've got 50 states plus the District of Columbia. Now, we highlight all of these links using Select All, and we go up to the Tools menu, and we say Apply Scraper. Okay? And what that tells it to do is go to each one of those 50 links and see what information it can find. It's warning us here that we can go through links more quickly if we don't visualize the website, but it's warning you not to do that too often because you can overburden a site if you do. So, we set it going, and our intelligent robot goes one page at a time and pulls out all the pieces of information that we're interested in. Okay, a little fast forward there so that you don't have to sit through all 50 states plus DC. But as you can see, it's chugging along, even on a dial-in line or on cable modem, and at a pretty reasonable pace. It's certainly a lot faster than any of us would be able to chug through and pull all these numbers down. So, we got all 51 websites have been scraped, and we hit catch, which catches all the data. We hit export, which helps us to export a CSV file. And once we've done that, we can open it up in Excel, where we can take a look and find the data there. Again, with collection time, source URL, so on and so forth, all tied up neat with a bow on it.